music today as preeminent modern hymn writers. And so here he is joining us right now to talk about what the Gettys do at Christmas time. And in particular, Keith, thanks for joining us this hour. You're going to be at Carnegie Hall, and you go to a lot of other places with your Christmas tour. Talk to us about how special this time of year for the Gettys.
Well, first of all, thanks, Kelly, so much for having you on my show. I've spoken to many Kellys over the years of Irish Christmas, and all the rest of them are actually Irish. So, but it's great to be in the show. We back in 2010, we started writing hymns in the year 2000, and Christ Alone was the first hymn that we wrote in the kindness of the Lord, and that opened many doors to do things. In 2010, we decided to do a project which is basically more on carols, and we got a call from Billy Graham's assistant to ask would we come and do an event with him, the late great Billy Graham, and we did this event. It was just 20-minute. It was two 20-minute sets, and he spoke in the middle. And for some reason, there was a magic about it. Obviously, there was a magic because it was Billy Graham. But we thought, this really has potential to be a very wonderful way to share Christmas. If you're hymn writers, many of the greatest hymns are Christmas. And so we created this show where the first half is basically an Irish party, and the second half is an Irish carol service, 9 lessons in carols, where we read through the whole gospel story. But we encourage the place to sing from in the first half, singing along with things like Celtic tunes, singing along with Winter Wonderland, singing with our kids coming in for another, doing Silent Night in the whole place a cappella, celebrating, finishing it with Joy to the World. In the second half, we do it's a 60-minute lessons in carol service, which takes you through the whole Christian story. My wife, who is obviously the voice of the ESV, I guess, to read the Christmas story. But we've also got some guests. We've got the poet Malcolm Guite joining us this year. We have our friend A.R. Bernard and Michael Keller joining us in New York City, John Piper in Minneapolis, and then a few others along the way. So we're excited with that.
You've got some great guests there. A.R. Bernard, who is a friend. I love him dearly and love what he's doing around the world today with his message about the intersection of faith and culture. And certainly that's what you've been doing musically, but also behind the scenes as you've met, like you talked about, with the greats like Billy Graham and the contributions that he made, not just to America, but the entire world. Do you see yourself in that vein, making contributions not just to the quote unquote Christian community, but to the world beyond, because of the fact that you've been able to do it through the power of music, which has a universal appeal to everyone?
It's a funny question. I'm a sort of a working class Irish kid who was a classical musician and wrote a collection of hymns because they were really protest hymns, because I was so concerned that modern worship music was not deep enough. It was not helping build deep believers. And so it was out of that something like In Christ Alone came, which is probably sung more today in East Asia than at age 17 than it's sung in America and Europe combined. So some of the songs, I don't consider myself on the same level as any of the people you mentioned, but the songs have occupied that space and have tried to become anthems for Christianity around the world, from anthems for the underground church to songs that get sung by rock and metal bands to songs that get sung on state occasions with for the enthronement of the Archbishop of Canterbury and they're all family and all that kind of thing. So the songs have traveled. I'm not sure. I probably would hold them back if I tried to stay too close to them, but we're privileged to do that. And even the Christmas show, after we worked with Billy Graham and that, we had the call, an opportunity to do it at Carnegie Hall, which they've kept every year. And indeed, next year, they've given me my 50th birthday to celebrate 10 years of the show at Carnegie Hall. Wow, which is so exciting. And but also, I would say, we obviously had a lot of PBS television. So for some people, to have done 3 years in PBS was kind of interesting to us because these people were not the people who chose the show and worked the show and broadcast and worked and mixed and promoted it. None of them were people of faith, but for some reason it seemed to connect. And so that's our great hope. If you're in New York or Washington D.C. or Chicago or Pittsburgh or Minneapolis or any of these cities where the show is playing this Christmas, that you maybe consider coming and bringing your friends, but maybe bringing friends or family or workmates who are yet to believe, who are still curious about the Christian faith, but to them, the Christ child is still a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely. And Keith, I got to ask you this question: how did it all begin for you? You talked about being a young kid growing where did your intersection of faith and Keith meet and connect so that you could go off and do this wonderful contribution to the modern traditional hymns that so many people
Thanks
want
for
to hear?
asking. Thanks for asking, Kelly. My parents raised me in a church-going house. They introduced me to music, so I owe much to them. At 18, I met a man called Professor John Lennox. I heard him speak, and he totally inspired my soul. And of course, he's gone on to be one of the great apologists in the world today for the Christian faith. John Lennox, a professor of maths at Oxford. And not least of all, because 6 years later, he introduced me to his niece, a little girl called Kristen, who he thought I should help because I was old enough to have, no conflicting interests other than her musical development. And he never trusted me after that, I have to say, because he ended up marrying her. Um, but he said to me, it's important. He said, when all my friends were becoming pastors, he said, I think you should be a musician. He said, I have more Christian and gospel opportunity being a mathematician than I would have had being a pastor. He says, I feel it might be the same for you in music. And he was exactly right. We have and we're so grateful, so grateful for that. And we try to take it. We try to take every opportunity really, really seriously. And that's a huge, that's a huge part of it. He also said, make sure you're be the best musician you can be, but make sure your faith is growing faster than your music. Your understanding of the Bible, your love for the church, the church you go to, and the people around you. And so that was a tremendous help. A lot of the friends I've met along the way have either become second-rate musicians and then blamed the world for why their music hadn't become good, or they've become so serious about music that to the detriment of their faith. And so those things were all important, and if they're always growing each day, and we're trying to humbly learn, I think the Lord does open doors. I could never have expected the influence that the hymn catalog has, all around the world today, because we do live, as we think about the context of the world around us, whether it's Israel and Hamas, like you mentioned, whether it's internal national issues and social and issues of morality and everything else.
I got to ask you, what does Christmas mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's such a chance to. So I always think of it in terms of music because the Christmas carols have such an incredible history. When you think about the fact that even before something like the Reformation in history, the only time of the year people were actually singing the scriptures and reading the scriptures was Christmas. When you think of maybe some of the more strict negative periods, even in our Western history, when things like singing and dancing and instrumental music were banned, or dancing and music were banned, they were allowed at Christmas. There's something about Christmas, and even walking down high street shops, you look into shops, and some of them seem so painfully woke, and yet they'll also be using biblical terms, Christmas terms, in this season. So, it affords all of us a unique opportunity. The people around us, everyone is taking stock of their life at Christmas, whether they pretend they are or not. And so, the chance to get to sing the Christmas story in these beautiful tunes and these great traditional carols is fantastic. And the chance for us each year to write a new carol as well is a special thing too.
It's special indeed. And look, Keith, and I don't have to tell you, we're living some very perilous times. And what would be your message to people about persecution for any class of people that happen to follow their belief or their practice?
Well, obviously, as you probably know, the primary sponsor, partner is probably a better word for it, of our Christmas tour is Voice of the Martyrs, because we're trying to bring some understanding and realization to what actually is going on in the world. And there's three reasons we do it. One of them is because we're commanded to pray for those who are being persecuted, because they are our brothers, they are our sisters. We should care. We should feel pain when they're feeling pain. The second reason is that most of the places persecution has happened, it needs to also be said, in almost all of those places, the church is actually growing. So we have to ask a question, if we have any humility and intelligence at all, what is it about these believers and their focus that we don't have right now? And then thirdly, as you made the comment earlier, Kelly, I think we need to be involved with the persecuted church because it is a sign of where the West is going. The West has lived in the benefit on the tall shoulders of generations and generations of preachers and parents and lawyers and doctors and business owners and educators who all taught, Judeo-Christian values. And so, as we go beyond that, we have to accept the fact that choices have consequences. And so, we want to raise our kids and our grandkids to be deep believers. We did the Sing World Tour this year. Obviously, we did the Bin Sing in Nashville. We did Sing Europe. Then we went across and did Sing Asia and Singapore. And we finished with Sing Australia. The closing night was in Sydney, sold out show at Sydney Opera House. It was a wonderful experience. But we met many, many people. I think there was 45 different nationalities at those events, and these were people from every kind of background, every kind of social strata.
And I'm looking forward to that wonderful event at Carnegie Hall. But we have a Christmas special going on as well here on America's Hope and for all of NTD and Epic Times, and we're calling it a Joyful Christmas. Um, at this time where so many people in countries, as I've stated before, have been persecuted, but also we've seen on the front pages and the headlines how people have been at war in Israel and Ukraine and so many other wars and rumors of wars. How do you find joy in the midst of sorrow?
Well, I can't speak to everyone's, uh, so everybody's context. I don't know it, and in many ways, my life has been privileged in that I don't have to live in each of those things. But I do know that music reaches the depth. Irish music is known. G.K. Chesterton once said, "God bless the pagan Irish, made God mad, but all their wars are happy and all their songs are sad." And I think it's a little bit of a joke because we do have lots of happy music in the show too, but we do have moments where we reach to those depths. And I think if you come to the concert in Carnegie Hall, for example, we've got the rapper Triple E guesting with us. We've got a poem being written especially for the city of New York by the poet Malcolm Guy. We got and the whole Carnegie Hall all singing Silent Night a cappella. We got just so many extraordinary moments, as well as singing the Christmas story together and filling that whole hall up with work.
That's fantastic. That shows that hope is alive, my friend. Keith, I ask everyone this question. My final question for you is, what is your hope for America and thereby for the world?
Our hope is that that many will see and that many will fear, and many will put their trust in the Lord Jesus. And if as many could do that this Christmas, that will be an extraordinary thing.
Keith Getty.